can I ask you something that might make you uncomfortable? When was the last time you actually stopped minus not just paused between worries, but genuinely stopped minus and asked yourself, what if God is already funding everything I need, and my panic is the only thing blocking me from seeing it? What if the provision you've been begging for has already been released, already been set in motion, already been assigned to your name minus, and the only reason it hasn't fully landed in your hands yet is because worry has been standing in the doorway, blocking the very blessing trying to get through? Stay with me, because what I'm about to walk you through is not a pep talk. It is a reckoning, and you need it today more than you know. Let me describe your morning, because I think I know how it went. You opened your eyes, and for maybe 3 seconds, minus just 3, minus everything, felt okay. And then it hit the familiar wave, the numbers, the bills, the thing that isn't resolved yet, the prayer that still hasn't been answered in the form you needed. And before your feet even touched the floor, the worry was already sitting on your chest like something physical. Does that sound familiar? Can you feel that right now, even as you're watching this? You have been carrying a financial anxiety so constant, so ever-present, that you've started to mistake it for reality itself. You've started to believe the worry is telling you the truth, minus that there isn't enough, that it isn't coming, that God has bigger priorities than the specific, painful, deeply personal struggle you've been living with for longer than you want to admit. But what if the worry has been lying to you this entire time? What if fear has been narrating your life in the most inaccurate, most destructive way possible minus? And it's time for you to take the microphone back. Have you ever noticed how far you've already come without collapsing? Think about this, honestly. Think about the financial crises you've already survived. The month you absolutely did not know how it was going to work out minus, and it worked out. The bill that seemed impossible, minus that somehow got paid. The situation that kept you up 3 nights in a row, minus that eventually resolved in a way you did not see coming. How many times has that happened in your life? Not once, not twice. More times than you can probably count on both hands. So here is the question you need to sit with right now. If God brought you through all of those moments, minus every single one, minus what exactly is making you believe He won't bring you through this one? The track record is not working against you. The track record is actually extraordinary. The problem is that worry has a short memory, and gratitude has to be practiced deliberately, or it disappears. If you want to change your life starting today, subscribe to this channel minus, because this is the kind of truth we speak here every single time. Why are you treating your worst-case scenario like it's already happened? Here is something worth examining. Right now, in this moment, how much of what you are afraid of has actually happened? Not might happen, not could happen. How much of the catastrophe living in your mind is currently, factually, real? Most of the time, when we're honest, the answer is not as much as it feels like. The suffering we experience from financial worry is often the suffering of a future that has not arrived and may never arrive minus being felt in full. Right now, in the present moment, ask yourself this: what would today look like if I chose to live it without borrowing tomorrow's problems? God operates in the present. Provision moves in the now. And when you are mentally living 3 months ahead in the worst possible version of your future, you are completely unavailable for the miracle that is trying to meet you in today. Worry doesn't protect you from a bad future. It just steals the good present you actually have. What if the provision is already in motion and you just can't see it yet? Do you remember how a seed works? You put it in the ground, you water it, and then nothing visible happens for what feels like a very long time. The ground looks exactly the same. And if you didn't know anything about how seeds work, you would conclude that nothing was happening, minus that the seed was dead, that the effort was wasted, that the ground had rejected what you planted. But underground, something is happening that the surface cannot show you. Roots are forming. Life is organizing itself. A structure is being built that will eventually push through the surface in a way that seems sudden, but was never sudden at all. Can you trust that this is what's happening in your financial life right now? Can you genuinely consider that the provision you've been praying for is already growing underground in ways that haven't broken the surface yet, but will? What would change in your day-to-day if you chose to believe the seed is already growing? Have you been rejecting help because it didn't arrive in the form you expected? This is one of the most important questions I'm going to ask you today, so I need you to be really honest with yourself. Has an opportunity shown up recently that you dismissed too quickly? Has someone offered help that your pride made difficult to accept? Has a door opened that you didn't walk through because it wasn't the door you were expecting? God's funding rarely arrives looking exactly the way we imagined it would. It comes through people we didn't expect, through opportunities that seemed too small at first glance, through redirections that felt like setbacks before they revealed themselves as shortcuts. Ask yourself right now, what has been placed in my path recently that I might have overlooked because I was too focused on what I thought the answer was supposed to look like? Because here's what I know about provision. It is almost always creative. It almost always surprises you, and it almost always requires your willingness to receive it in the form it arrives, not just in the form you requested. If this question is stirring something in you, subscribe because we go this deep every single time. Why does generosity feel impossible when you're worried? And what does that cost you? Can I tell you something that goes against every financial instinct worry creates? The moment your hands close around what you have in fear, minus the moment your grip tightens, and your world gets smaller and your giving dries up that is exactly the moment the flow starts to slow. Not because God punishes you for being afraid, but because generosity is a posture, and provision flows most freely through people who have learned to hold what they have loosely. The person who gives from a place of lack is not being financially foolish, they are demonstrating a faith that keeps the channel open. When was the last time you gave something away, time, money, a skill, an encouragement, without calculating whether you could afford to? That question is worth sitting with, because the chosen ones God funds most abundantly are almost always the ones who understood early that they were never meant to be the final destination of what flowed through them. They were meant to be the channel, and channels that stay open receive more than containers that stay sealed. What are you still trying to control that was never yours to control? Here's an honest question. How tired are you? Not just physically, soul tired. The kind of exhaustion that comes from trying to manage every variable, predict every outcome, cover every gap, solve every problem, all by yourself, all the time, without rest or relief. Because that is what financial worry does at its core. It is the exhausting attempt to control what you were never equipped to control alone. It is you trying to carry the weight of provision that was always meant to be shared between you and something much larger than you. What would happen if you actually put it down, not abandoned your responsibility, but genuinely surrendered the outcome? What would your body feel like if you stopped white-knuckling the future for just one day? Can you try that today, just today? God said he would supply all your needs, minus not some of them. Not the easy ones, not the ones that fit neatly into what seems possible. All of them. The word is all. And you fighting for control of your financial situation does not make his provision more likely. It just makes you more exhausted. Let go of the rope. The weight isn't yours to carry. Have you asked God specifically, Oregon just generally? This might be a question nobody has asked you before. When you pray about your finances, minus when you bring your worry to God, minus how specific are you? Do you say, help me with money, in the same way you might ask someone to help with dinner, minus vague, undefined, easy to ignore? Or do you get honest and precise? Do you say this exact bill by this exact date, because this is what happens if it isn't paid? Do you bring the real numbers, the real fear, the real shame of the situation into the conversation with the full belief that he can handle the specificity of your need? There is a faith that stays general because getting specific feels too risky, minus like if you ask for something exact and it doesn't come, the disappointment would be too great. But vague faith gets vague results. Precise faith, minus the kind that brings the actual, ugly, detailed truth of what you need minus that kind of faith is what moves specific mountains. What is the specific thing you need to ask for today that you've been afraid to name out loud? Name it. Right now, after this video, get specific. And if you want to keep building that kind of faith, subscribe, because that is exactly the level we operate at here. Are the people around you funding your worry or your faith? Take a quick inventory. The people you spend the most time with minus the conversations that fill your days minus do they leave you more anxious about money or more at peace about it? Do they rehearse the hardship with you in ways that feel bonding but are actually keeping you both stuck? Or do they speak possibility over your situation in ways that feel almost unrealistic but plant something important in you? The environment you live in emotionally is not a passive backdrop to your financial life. It is an active ingredient in it. Chronic financial worry is enormously contagious, and so is steadfast financial faith. Who in your life right now is speaking faith over your situation, minus and when did you last spend quality time with that person? You may not be able to change everyone around you, but you can be intentional about whose voice gets the most access to your mindset. The chosen ones God is funding are surrounding themselves with people who remind them of his faithfulness, minus not people who constantly rehearse his apparent absence. This channel exists to be one of those voices for you. Subscribe and let us be that. What would you do today if you actually believed God was funding your life right now? This might be the most powerful question in this entire video, and I want you to answer it honestly, not idealistically. If you woke up tomorrow morning with a bone-deep certainty minus not hope, not wish, but certainty minus that God was actively funding your life, that provision was already in motion, that the story was already being written toward abundance, minus what would you do differently today? Would you make that phone call you've been afraid to make? Would you start the thing you've been waiting until you felt more financially stable to begin? Would you give more freely, rest more fully, trust more openly, step more boldly? Now here is the harder question. What is stopping you from living that way before the certainty fully arrives? Because here's the truth. Faith is not a feeling that comes after the evidence. It is a decision you make before the evidence, and that actually creates the conditions for the evidence to appear. The version of you that lives like provision is coming minus. That is the version of you that makes the space for provision to arrive. Start living from that version today, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it feels presumptuous, even if every worried part of you pushes back. Choose it anyway. And when you do, watch what starts to move. What story have you been telling yourself about money that God never told you? The lie that has been living rent-free in your mind. Somewhere along the way, in your childhood, through your parents' struggles, through your own painful experiences, with lack a story got installed in you. A story that said money is always scarce, that financial peace is for other people, that something about you specifically makes abundance difficult or even impossible. And you've been living inside that story so long that it stopped feeling like a story and started feeling like reality. But here's what I need you to ask yourself right now. Did God write that story? Or did fear write it and hand it to you so many times you eventually believed it was true? Because the God who created everything, who owns every resource on this earth, who has never once run short of what his people needed, that God did not sit down and author a story about your life that ends in perpetual lack. That is not his handwriting. That is the handwriting of every hard experience that taught you to expect less than what was prepared for you. It is time. Today, not someday. Today to challenge that story at its root. To pick it up, look at it, and ask whose voice it's actually written in. And then to decide that you are willing to live inside a different narrative. The one God wrote. The one that says, I will supply all your needs. I have not forgotten you. I am funding your life right now. Here's where I want to leave you. Not with a list of things to do, not with a formula, but with a moment. A moment where you simply decide, right here. Right now, that you are done letting worry be the loudest voice in your financial life. That you are done rehearsing the worst-case scenario until it feels more real than the God who has carried you every single time. You are chosen, not because your life has been perfect, or your faith has been flawless, or your decisions have all been right, but because the God who sees everything including the parts of your financial situation you're most ashamed of has looked at all of it and decided you are worth funding, worth providing for, worth turning. The story of the questions I asked you today were not random. Every single one of them was pointing you toward the same truth. The provision is not missing. The awareness of it is what's been missing. And today, that changes. If this video reached the real place in you, if something in these questions cracked something open that needed to be cracked, then I want you to do one thing right now. Subscribe to this channel. Not as a passive click, as a decision. A decision that says, I want to keep living in this level of truth. I want to keep asking these questions. I want to keep building a faith that is bigger than my worry. If you want real change in your financial life, real change in how you think and feel and believe about money, and God's provision, subscribe and stay. Because everything we create here is made for exactly the person you are right now. Someone on the edge of a shift. Someone who just needed someone to ask them the right questions. and share this today. Send it to the person in your life who is drowning in financial worry right now and doesn't know that the answer to every question they've been asking might be closer than they think. God is funding your life right now. The only question left is will you let yourself receive it? Subscribe. Stay. The breakthrough is asking you questions too. Start answering.